Okay, hello everybody and welcome to this month's Randstad UK webinar, Kicking Leadership Issues into Touch. Not long to wait until our next webinar on May the 6th, which is being delivered by our sister organisation Randstad Sourceright on building a sustainable remote workforce. Let us know if you're interested in that. Later in the spring and summer, I'll be interviewing two more Saracens internationals, yet to be confirmed precisely who, but it'll be two from Elliot Daly, Jamie George, Owen Farrell or Billy Vanapola. Today, however, our canvas is resilient leadership, motivation under pressure, diversity. It's rugby union, it's Saracens, it's England, and it's the British and Irish Lions legend, Maro Itoje. Welcome, Maro.
Hello, thank you.
Oh, you're not on mute. Beautiful. Now, before we get stuck in, guys, you'll be able to answer ask your own questions using the Q&A functionality at the bottom of the screen. And you can upvote those that excite you most. I'll do my best to keep across those questions. Keep them short, please. No big essays. I can't read them in real time. It's a bit rubbish if that happens. And no nasty questions, because I'll frankly ignore them. All right. So that's that. Okay, the session is being recorded and you'll be sent a link to that within the next few days. So if you do have to dash off and do something, then feel free to. Now, Maro, welcome again. So with a winning try against France, a couple of tries against Bedford at the weekend, but be honest, am I right in saying that with 700 registrations today, this is the biggest crowd that you've played in front of this year?
Well, I guess virtually, maybe maybe in person as well.
Good stuff. Okay, well, let's start at the beginning. First question from me: when did you first know you wanted to be a rugby player?
So I come from a background where rugby isn't really a thing. So growing up, I didn't come from a culture of rugby. I didn't come from a family background that was too immersed in the game. So I didn't have a natural affinity to the game initially. But when I moved to secondary school, I started playing rugby at the age of 11. I mainly started just as a way to make new friends. I was moving school. My previous headmaster told me that I may be quite good at it. I should give it a go. So I just started playing at the age of 11. Then I fell in love with the game, fell in love with the sport. Then I would say probably around the age of 15 or so, I actually saw it as a potential career opportunity for myself.
Okay, well, we're having this conversation at 5 p.m. today because you've been training all day, I understand, and obviously catching up on a bit of university work between Six Nations commitments and possible British Lions call-ups. You're hoovering up yet more qualifications. What does education mean to you? We've got a lot of people on the call in the education space. So, what's been your education journey? You mentioned which schools did you go to? How did it work? And how many qualifications have you hoovered up since working for Saracens over the last several years?
Well, to start with, education is, I think, is an incredibly important part of my life. And I think that really comes from my parents. My parents, right from an early age, drilled down the importance of education for us, for everyone really, but specifically in our lives, they drilled down, especially my dad. He made sure that we knew that education was the key to success. So they spent a lot of time, spent a lot of energy, both emotionally and financially, putting us in situations where we can succeed with our academic careers. So I started off at a school in Cricklewood. Then I went to a few different primary schools and eventually ended up at Southcombe Prep in Southgate. From Southgate, I went to a boarding school in Hartlepool called St. George's.
It's quite near me, actually. It's about 5 miles away. Yeah, so I know it well.
So I went there for 5 years. Then for my sixth form, I moved to Harrow School for the last 2 years of secondary.
How did that work? Did they just get wind of you being amazing at rugby and reach out and poach you from the school, or?
Well, I think when you're around the age of 15, 16, and you start to play for England, there's a whole number of different public schools that start to show big interest. So it was really about like sieving through some of the offers and just finding out which one would be the best fit for myself. Then once I left school, I was due to start with Saracens the following September, or the following July. It was pretty much straight away after school. But as I said before, education has been an incredibly important part of my life. And quite frankly, I think my parents would have disowned me if I didn't go to university. So I enrolled at the School of Oriental and African Studies, which is abbreviated to SOAS, to study politics. I did my undergrad there. Then I took a couple of years out. Then at the moment, I'm currently doing my MBA at the University of Warwick.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I know Saracens are big on education, right? They make sure that all the players are doing some kind of full-time-ish course. Is that correct?
Well, they encourage all players to do something. Obviously, no two players are the same, no two journeys are the same. So it's you have to kind of tailor the journey to the specific individual, specific player. So a university degree may not be the best fit for someone who's not really looking to go into that space. So I think Saracens, they do a good job at trying to figure out with the respective player what specifically they want to do, what specifically they want to achieve, and try and create a plan to support them on that journey.
Yeah, good stuff. It's one of the reasons that we partnered with them, is their commitment to education. And there's the Saracens High School, of course, and a couple of feeder primary schools that they fund as well. And we're the biggest educator recruiter in the country. So the synergy there. Let's talk about belief in yourself, really. What experiences in your background have given you the confidence to play at professional level, and then, for a triple Premiership title winning side, England, the British Lions, in your background, and what's happened? What experiences gave you that confidence, do you think?
Well, I think it's a journey. I don't think I'm probably more confident now than I was when I was 21, and I was more confident at 21 when I was 16. So I feel as if it's a journey, and you learn as with the experiences. I think you learn through the hard work, through the tough times, through the good times, are all learning opportunities. But I guess how it all started is probably with a reasonably strong sense of self, and I think that has gotten stronger, and I'm much more comfortable in my own skin now than I was 10 or so years ago. But I think that gives you a good grounding to be able to try and do whatever you want to do in your life.
I've been had the privilege of watching a few training sessions with you guys, actually, and this is a non-scripted question. And I've been really impressed with each other, having one another's back, I suppose, is the phrase I'd use. I remember seeing the ball go really high in the air a few times, and the fullback there, well, whoever it is, and everyone sort of chanted at the person, back yourself, to catch it. And it struck me as a very powerful sort of mantra to share with your colleagues. I think in a lot of environments, probably in a lot of teams, people are secretly thinking, I want you to drop it, mate, because then I get picked at the weekend. But Saracens doesn't feel to be like that at all. It's very, very bonded like that.
Well, I think I'll probably say it's the same in all highly successful teams, or teams that want to be consistently successful. You have to be in it together. No man is an island. You can't achieve anything by yourself, especially in a game like rugby. 15-man game. You really can't. No single player can win a game of rugby by themselves if the other team members have different ideas. So it's really just having that kind of collective spirit. And conversely, there are going to be moments in games or moments in training or even moments in life where you yourself, you don't have the rub of the green. You yourself have a couple negative situations, and when you're in that position, I'm sure most people would want the support of the people who they consider either teammates, friends, family, colleagues, etc. So it's really give and take.
I guess that's culture, really, isn't it? We're been a supporter of Saracens for years now as a business, and we've partnered you for many reasons. But the shared values of honesty, work rate, humility, discipline was a big part of that partnership. And I think my question would really be around, I think businesses, do you think businesses could learn an awful lot from that kind of culture and that shared value, that leadership, that motivation, that team spirit?
Without a shadow of a doubt, I also think that sport can learn a lot from highly successful businesses and how they run and how they operate. There's a lot of similarities between teams that have been at the top level, individuals that have been at the top level, as well as business people, companies that have been consistently at the top for a long time. They're both high pressured situations, slightly different pressure, but they're both high pressure situations. They're both places where high performance is necessary and required. But it's definitely a situation where both sectors can learn from one another.
No, I agree, absolutely. Can I ask you to be a little bit closer to the microphone? It's a little bit quiet on occasion, if that's all right, Maro. Who are your role models when you grew up? What sort of leaders were they, and how did they inspire you?
Well, I had a few role models. I had people like Muhammad Ali. He was a big role model of mine. People. I'm an Arsenal fan, so
Sorry about
that. Yeah, it's sorry indeed. So the likes of Patrick Vieira and the likes of Thierry Henry, they were my big role models growing up. But besides that, I have a lot of role models in like the political space. People like Kwame Nkrumah. He was the first president of Ghana. He was a big role model of mine. A lot of the independence leaders of the 60s and 50s were people that I look up to, and their work, their rhetoric inspires me.
Your politics degree is coming out there, Maro. Very impressive. Can we talk about you as a leader and your experiences? In 2014, you captained the England under-20 team to victory at the Junior World Championship final. So at a young age, by definition, it was the under-20s. But at that age, how are you able to position yourself as a leader and adopt that mindset so early on? There must have been other characters in the squad at the time that were, potentials to be leaders, but they chose you. Do you know why?
Well, to know the true answer to that question, you're going to have to ask the coach at the time. But what I can guess, or what I could deduce, is that they saw leadership qualities in myself that they thought that was suitable for the role.
Were you tallest?
I actually wasn't the tallest. I think there was a few
Crikey.
taller than me, but I was near the tallest.
A big part of your personal brand on the field is Maro Itoje, the motivating force. What do you do to motivate your teammates and build confidence when spirits are low? What do you think's different about your approach?
Well, for me, it's all about, I'm a player. I know when I'm at my best, I'm playing with, the highest amount of energy that I possibly can. I'm loud, I'm physical, and I'm looking to energize my teammates through my actions and through my behaviors. But with leadership and with trying to energize other people around you, the best way of being a leader is always through, getting your own performance right. There's a lot of rhetoric around, maybe speeches, maybe, saying a couple words to players here and there, blah, blah, blah. But the most powerful way to inspire others is through getting your own performance right. You playing well, you performing to a high level. And when you are like that, other people tend to follow. Other people tend to want to reach that level that you are on.
So that's how you create that atmosphere. Because I watch a lot of rugby, and the commentators always say that you create atmosphere, and of course that's been evident in this recent Six Nations and the internationals in the autumn, and in fact the last Six Nations as well, of course, where there's been no crowd, there's been no home fans, so there's been no atmosphere, but atmosphere has been created. That must have been difficult, right? And how have you created that positive atmosphere?
Well, obviously, as you've alluded to, having no fans in the stadium has created its own sets of challenges in terms of atmosphere, in terms of the feeling for games. But again, I think it just goes back to your own personal performance. If once you get your personal performance right, you tend to lead others, and perhaps you have to, probably try and energize the team a little bit more because of the intense lack of noise that is surrounded the stadium. But all in all, it's okay.
Did the England team do anything different in terms of the prep in the changing room beforehand? Different music? Did they use fake stadium noise in the tunnel or anything like that, or anything changed from a normal match? Or
we didn't do anything like that. I think all those things are a little bit artificial. What we try to be is a self-motivated, self-regulated team, because I think yes, there was lack of atmosphere, yes, there was all of that, but I think it's if the best players, the best teams, the best individuals are always self-motivated. If I the bell's ringing. If I need you to shout at me to tell me to go forward, then that is, whilst that may have a time and a place, but over a long period of time, that's counterintuitive. The motivation needs to come from me, from within, for me to be the player that I want to be. So that was the kind of rhetoric that we tried to adopt.
I remember speaking to an Olympic rower actually, and he talked about motivation, self-motivation, and he referenced the anecdote that he knew he had to run at 5 a.m. in the morning, but he was running at 5 a.m. in the morning, not with anyone else watching because they weren't together at that time of the morning. So, but he didn't want to be the person that when they failed at the end in the final, that he thought, I was the guy that didn't run at 5 in the morning for a few shifts. I missed those and I didn't have anyone watching me to do that 5 a.m. run, but I did it anyway. So that was kind of his definition, was a sort of self-shame that he had built in if he didn't commit.
when motivation when motivation fails, discipline takes over.
Like it. Okay, good stuff. Can we tread on the relatively delicate topic of diversity a bit? You're a huge advocate in that space, I know. And before I ask the question around this, here's some context from the RFU before you answer. And it's this. This is from the RFU. Despite growth of the women's game and the most diverse England men's team ever, true, compared to the overall England adult population, those who participate in rugby union are significantly less likely to be female or of an ethnic minority or of the lowest socio-economic group, and only 31% agree that rugby is representative of the general population. So in that context, why do you think that's the case? Why do you think it's important that sports teams and indeed organisations alike draw talent from a selection of backgrounds and experiences?
Well, I think some of the answers are in some of the facts that you just read out. I think rugby is seen as a upper/middle class game for a lot of people.
In England, yeah,
for sure. It's seen as a game which is predominantly played by private schools. In the schooling system, the best schools have the best rugby teams, and generally the academies pick from the best rugby teams. They have more of a chance to shine. They have more opportunities. So there's that aspect to it. So in terms of why, it has this image of being a rich upper class sport. In terms of the benefits of diversity, it's almost where do you start? And even just looking at it, let's look at it from a purely sporting point of view. So if you have a wider pool of players, you have more players to select from. If you have more players to select from, you have more competition. Competition drives performance. Competition drives, it drives performance, and it makes players better. It makes players better. Then, so you have a better pool of players now to choose from because you have a wider net. And even thinking about this from a cognitive point of view, if you have a wider group of people who have different thoughts, different thinking patterns, different experiences, different backgrounds, in terms of problem solving, in terms of looking for solutions to problems, you have a greater chance of solving those problems if you have a more wide and varied group of people playing the game. Then even if we want to look at this from a financial point of view, rugby in this country is the little brother to football and arguably cricket, depending on who you talk to. So
I'm not having that.
It's fighting for position. It's definitely either second or third, fighting for position against the mammoth of football. If you have a wider group of people playing your game, you have a wider level of interest in the game, you have that will mean more demand for tickets at stadiums. It will mean more viewerships when watching games. It will mean more demand to see England play. And that will just boost the coffers of the organizations in which we're talking about. And who knows, hopefully it'll trickle down to the players as well. but diversity just has a number of positive benefits for everyone involved. And I think it's relatively similar to those to businesses, mainly from that cognitive point of view. Again, if you have a wide and varied workforce, you can pull on from different experiences. You can you can learn from each other. You can, in terms of solving problems,
I couldn't agree more. And your answer tees me up nicely to mention our 2021 diversity and inclusion report. And the quote there is, companies with more diverse staff demographics tend to be more productive, with McKinsey finding that companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have better financial returns than industry medians. So do you think that's the same for sports teams? You obviously do. Do you think it's time for, similar to football, a Rooney rule to help fight discrimination? So, promote a more diverse working environment within sport, and there to be a rule in that regard in terms of race and sports teams?
Well, I definitely think that. So with rugby or with sport, like, you always have it. Just solely have. What we want with diversity is not necessarily, to make people employ people they don't want to employ. What we want is people to be employed purely based on merit and equal opportunity for all. So with that, we don't want a situation where, people, just because they come from a certain demographic, just because they come from a certain social class, just because they come from, they might have a negative stereotype associated with either their ethnicity, their skin color, or, their social class. What we don't want is that to be a determining factor when deciding whether or not that person is suitable for the job. What we want is a situation where it's purely based on merit. And, any way that we can ensure that is the case, I think needs to be put forward, because at the moment, I believe both, probably more so, I would actually say more so in business than in sport. I would say sport is probably a little bit more meritocratic than business.
Without question, yeah.
That, they need to look at ways in which they can, like, seriously address these issues.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, what do you think? We talked about football a touch and one or two other sports. What do you think those sports can learn from rugby union in terms of diversity, but attitude, respect, humility?
Well, in terms of diversity, I think rugby can learn from a few from other sports. To be honest, I think football is a lot more diverse than rugby. So I think rugby can learn from other sports. Other sports can learn from rugby, but specifically, what they can learn from rugby is I think respect is a big one. I think the level of respect, considering how violent rugby is as a sport, considering how aggressive it is as a sport, the level of respect that players have for one another, the level of respect that they have for the match officials, the general level of respect that the fans demonstrate. I have friends who are predominantly football fans, and they come to watch a rugby match and they're confused that they're sitting next to a Welshman, an Australian, a Frenchman, and everyone is watching the game amicably with total respect for one another. So I think.
Do you think partly that this is something I've heard for the last 25 years? People used to say it's because with rugby the violence is on the pitch, so that's why there's no violence in the stadiums. I mean, I don't think it is true, but it was kind of lobbed around in my day. I'm 46, so showing my vintage there. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the real reason. To be honest, I just think rugby has an inbuilt. One of the great things about rugby is actually some of its culture. it's predicated on, respect. It's predicated on treating people fairly, being a good sportsman. And I think that is one of the things that, about rugby that should be celebrated and encouraged.
Definitely. Do you call the referee sir?
Well, yes is the short answer. But in recent times, referees like to be called by their names. I don't think they like sir too much. So I think referees like to be a bit informal, but the default is always sir.
Sure. Let's talk about rugby for a little bit. What was different about the Six Nations experience this year to the previous year, and what lessons of leadership did you take from that?
Well, the main difference was that we won last year and we came fifth this year.
I didn't want to be so bold as to say that to you, Maro, but thanks for winning against France.
But in terms of lessons of leadership, I think you learn a lot when you go through tough times. You learn a lot when you go through periods of underperforming, and I think that was a situation that we experience now. I think we've learned from how we learn a lot about each other individually. I think we learn a lot about things that we need to do, and with all these things, it's always about how you respond. It's always about how you bounce back and how you look to rectify performances and the game, because the reality of the situation is, rugby is at the moment, especially at the highest level, it's a game of such fine margins, and if you're a little bit off, then it definitely is there for it to be seen. And you're always, when you win and when you lose, you're never as good as you think you are. You're never as bad as you think you are. You're always operating that way in the middle, and often, that's the media culture in which we live in. It's when you win, you're like Zeus on top of the world. Then when you lose, you're Hades in the underworld. So it's always, you're always somewhere in the middle, and sometimes, like when you win, it masks some of the things that you need to get right. And I think this is going to be a good. Obviously, I'd rather it didn't happen, but I think in the long run, it will serve us well. It will definitely bring us tighter as a team, and I think we'll have the right attitude to rectify it.
Do you think, in part, because you won it the previous year and it was an elongated season, so in effect, you won it the previous year, but about 3.5 months before the first game of the new one. So it's almost like, must have been very hard to maintain your motivation for the next Six Nations when the last one that you just won had been like 100 days, but 95 days before, right? Was that part of it, do you think?
No, are you talking about 21 or 20? Are you talking about 2020 Six Nations or 21?
Yeah, 2020 Six Nations, yeah.
No, with the 2020 Six Nations, I don't think the motivation was a problem. Like whenever you play for England, motivation is never really a problem. You always want to play. Like playing for England is one of the biggest privileges. It's part of the reason. Is what entices every young player to play. It's watching England play at Twickenham, watching England play in the Six Nations and World Cups. That's, as a young player, young individual, that's what entices you to want to play the sport. So
that's just media tittle tattle. I'll ignore it in future. Yeah. We know that. Sorry, Maro.
I said you'll be a good place to ignore a lot of.
We know that Saracens takes career transitioning very seriously, and at Randstad we're part of that solution, helping players actually bridge the gap between being sort of celebrity athletes and civvy street, as it were. What will your transition look like? In effect, you know, what happens to you after rugby? I think you described yourself as, when you were 26, 27, whatever you are now, as that's middle-aged in rugby terms. So what's next, Maro, for you?
Very good question. And I think with career transition is obviously something that I'm going to have to go through at some stage, hopefully later rather than sooner. But it's something that I definitely have to go through. And this is also part of the reason why I think education is so important. Part of the reason why I'm studying what I'm studying now is to put myself in a good position, put myself in a strong position when that time comes, so that I have the opportunity and the ability to choose what I want to do and choose exactly which avenue I go down. And at the moment, I know it's going to be something business related. When it's all said and done in terms of playing, I won't really be doing punditry. I won't be doing coaching. It's gonna have to be something in the business world. Obviously, that's very wide and varied statement, but I think in due course I will whistle that down to specifically the avenue I want to go in. But my plan is to put myself in the best possible position, so when that time does come, I'm able to make a relatively smooth transition to that avenue.
Good stuff. Look forward to the phone call. What's been your career highlight today? I mean, obviously, other than now, but what's been your career highlight today?
It's hard to say, to be honest. It's hard to say. I think I've been fortunate enough to have a few. I've been fortunate enough to have a few good moments in my career, so it's really hard to say. But if I was to, for the purpose of the Q&A, if I was to answer you specifically, one of the moments of pure ecstasy and joy that I experienced was when I found out, when I got the call that I was getting my first professional Saracens contract. I remember the day. I remember where I was. I was in my room at Harrow. I just got off the phone with my academy manager, and I was just ecstatic. It was, you know, I joined Saracens at the age of 14. From 14 to 18, I was working towards this one specific goal, and when it became a reality, I was over the moon with it. So I would say there's obviously been a lot since then, but you know, those years put me in a position to do what I did after.
Yeah, they qualify you for the bigger gig down the line, don't they?
Definitely up there.
Getting a job is a cool thing, certainly. And future career highlights for you, if you could take one now, would it be captaining England to a World Cup victory, or would it be captaining the British Lions to a victory in South Africa? I don't know, that's a wicked question.
Sorry, you mean in the future? You mean?
Yeah, your future career highlight. If you could take one of those two?
Well, if I could, my career highlight would just be me continuing to grow, continue to be a better player.
You have done a politics degree. Brilliant. Well done, Maro. Well done. There's probably a journalist or two on the call. They would have loved that. Maro wants to do that more than that. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Right, we've got some questions from the floor that have been sent in, actually, and we've got some questions on the Q&A that I'll look at in a sec. This one, we've got 20 minutes left. This one from Kevin Major at Kier Construction, big client of ours. Who would you like to see as the next Lions head coach after Warren Gatland?
The next Lions coach after Warren?
Yeah, you seem to have frozen a bit there. Yeah, got you back.
So who would I like to see? Warren can do it again if he wants. He can do it again if he wants. He's obviously had a very good track record. But if I was to go left field, I would like someone like Alex Sanderson to be because he knows how to have a good time, and I'm sure he'll make sure everyone has everyone will have a great time touring.
Sure thing. Okay, we have another one here from Sarah Shardlow, teachanywhere.com. You recently spoke out about Owen Farrell, your friend and captain, who you've known since you were 11, as a phenomenal captain. What is it that Owen does to bring out the best in you and the England and Saracens teams?
Well, Owen, his passion for the game is really incredible. His knowledge about the game, he grew up with rugby. He lives, breathes, eats rugby. He absolutely loves it. He's a true competitor, and his energy for it is just rubbed off on everyone around him. Obviously, he drives standards. He's a phenomenal player, and he's just a guy that you wanna go to work with.
Good stuff. We have one here from Jim Walton, Clifton College Preparatory School in Bristol. I know it well. I've lived about 100 yards from that for a while. Should all pupils have a chance to be captain of their school and club teams? Seems a bit odd to me, but there you go.
No.
Yeah, they shouldn't, should they? I think it's okay.
I say no because everyone has the capability of leading themselves, but not everyone is, not everyone's role is to be the main man. Not everyone's role is to be front and center. I think everyone can have leadership roles within the team to a certain degree, but not, for a team to be successful, to leaders, and you need more than one, and not just a captain. You need a team of leaders within a team, but you also need followers. You need people who are just going to do their job and do what the team needs them to be. So successful teams have a good blend of both people.
Good answer, yeah. John Bennett here from Sparrows Capital, 25 years a Saracen. He says, how have you managed your emotions for England and Saracens during the fallout from the demotion of Saracens from the Premiership? Almost a naughty question, skirting on the naughtiness side there, but have you managed your emotions, or maybe you haven't had too much emotion with it, or?
Well, the line fuzzed a little bit, but I think I got the gist of what you're saying. But the situation is a situation, and there's no point really looking back. And as I said earlier, with regards to setbacks, it's all about the opportunity going forward. Now we have an opportunity to. Up until this point, really, we played a really young team. We've blooded a lot of young up and coming rugby players, given them vital experience. They've had undivided attention from the coaches, and now some of the internationals are coming back or getting integrated back into the team. And going forward, we have opportunity to create another memory, hopefully winning the championship, and then we have opportunity to rewrite our story. We have opportunity to go back into the Premiership and start competing and start, going back to the situations that Saracens fans and Saracens players have become used to, competing for trophies on a yearly basis. And that's definitely the goal. That's what the players are going to work hard to get to.
Yeah, sure. Here's one from Mark Wheeler. How do you deal with a leader during a game who is not being effective in their leadership? Now, you only really play for Owen Farrell, don't you? Oh, I suppose Lyons has been a different captain, hasn't it?
Again, I think you're falling into this trap as well. Often when fans think of leadership, they think of just the captain, but it's far more. It's decision-making responsibility. Obviously, yes, the captain is the commander-in-chief. He has final say, but there's a lot of decisions that are made from different people who have leadership roles within the team. So there's never, and I'm sure I don't know the intricacies of your business, but I'm pretty sure the CEO is not the only one who ever makes decisions. He's not the only leader within that organization. I'm sure you have, your heads of departments, your middle managers, who you've empowered to make leadership roles, and that's the same within a rugby team. Obviously, is a little bit of a different context. So I think it's not accurate to think of leadership as just being the captain. And I'm sure, again, transferring it into the business world, some of your best or some of your most influential people aren't really front and center. They're not really. They're working either in the backgrounds, or they're people who don't necessarily have an official leadership role. But
it's not a title. Leadership isn't a title. Yeah, it's an attitude, a culture, and a.
So
absolutely.
In regards to someone being, ineffective with what they do, on the pitch, you don't really have enough time. So you have to almost like address it straight away, and then find a quick solution. Because if you don't do that, you'll probably get found out.
Sure thing. Neve Sykes, I know she's a huge fan of yours. What are your non-negotiables in leadership?
Personally, I would say I think being authentic is a huge part. If you're not authentic, people can see it. If I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, I might fool a couple people. I might fool you for a little while, but over a sustained period of time, people are going to see what the reality is, and they'll see past it. And that if you're not authentic with it, then you lose your power, you lose your level of influence on the people around you. So being authentic with your leadership is extremely important. And secondly, it's you have to lead by example. You have to do what you want others to do. You can't be, it's not do as I say, not as I do. It's you have to live it. You have to breathe. You have to be an example to those around you.
Is that how you motivate those around you that have less motivation than you? That's kind of a question from Peter Underwood here, which has had 10 votes. I think that's what he's getting at.
Well, I guess it's probably case specific, but I think you look to like motivate them through the shared goal or the shared ambition, or through reaching the standard that's required. And often when you're pushing things to reach a higher standard, then people want to achieve. People, especially in the type of environments that that I'm operating in, not many people there are just there to get by. So selection in terms of squad selection is a massive part of that. But the people there want to achieve, so you pushing them is more often than not, it's well received.
Good stuff. One here from Craig Ellicott. Could you ask Maro which achievement he is most proud of to date?
Which achievement am I most proud of today? It's a tough one, as I said. Previous similar question to before. It's a tough one. I'll just reel off a few. I think my first cap was an incredible period moment for me. As I said previously, you work all your life not all your life, but you work for a long time trying to play for England, and when that moment finally does come, it's a special moment. Winning several trophies with Saracens, European Cups, Premierships, Six Nations with England, the Lions tour of 2017 again was a special moment for myself. But I'll probably say being able to experience it with my family. Like, as I said at the start of this Q&A, my parents specifically weren't natural rugby fans, but now they live, eat and breathe rugby. They watch, my dad watches more rugby than me. That's how much he loves it. So it's been really nice to go on that journey with them.
One from Alex Nicol here, who unashamedly, that's my brother, by the way. If Maro could poach one leader from any team or organisation that he thinks could take England rugby to the next level, who would that be and why? It is a good question, to be fair.
If I could poach one leader, and to be clear, when I say I want to answer this question, but I'm not saying poach. I'm not poaching another captain. I'm poaching just another player who can lead. Who would I pick? I'll pick Jonah Levy. Why not? That
makes sense to me. Absolutely. Paul Edmonds here. How important is your faith, and how does that play out as a leader for Saracens in England?
My faith is another integral part of who I am. I'm a Christian, and I think I would like to think that. I think it's evident through the way I go about my life, the way I try and live my life, and I'm obviously by no means perfect, and obviously I have my flaws like all humans, but I would like to say that my teammates will at least say that he's a Christian, and I know that through the way he conducts himself. So I guess it's in terms of how it affects my leadership. I guess it's probably more so of how it affects me as a person, how it affects me as an individual, and that probably then dovetails into my leadership.
Maro, do you get nervous? A question from Wasif Anam here. How do you deal with nerves representing your country? But I guess he means just generally anyway. You seem incredibly laid back.
Well, me talking to you now and me on the pitch are two different kind of modes. But yeah, I do get nervous. I get nervous before every game. We played Bedford in the Championship last week, and I got nervous. So it's I get nervous before every game because I think it's because I care. I care about the results. I care about the ramifications of the game. I care about the people that are involved. I care about playing well and giving a good account of myself. And I think because I care and because I'm invested in it, I get nervous. The older I've got, the more experienced I've got, the better and better and better I've become with dealing with those nerves and dealing with those, handling those emotions and using them in a positive way. But I definitely do get nervous.
Good stuff. Well, not good. I'm just glad that you're human. What have we got here? Another one from Wazif, actually, because it's a good question. What would you be doing if you didn't play rugby?
Very good question.
We talked about business earlier, but it reminds me of, who was that? Someone asked Peter Crouch that, and I think his answer was, I'd be single, which I thought was a brilliant answer for him.
I'll be single. We digress. What would I do? I'm not too sure. The reason why it's difficult to answer because I feel as if I could do a lot of different things. I feel as if I could have gone into banking. I feel as if I could have gone into, the corporate world. I feel as if I could have, entered the civil service to some sort of degree. I feel as if I could have, maybe moved country and worked in a different world. I feel as if I have a skill set to do a few different things. So it's hard to necessarily pinpoint.
If you had to sum up leadership, because we're approaching the hour now, in 3 words, 3 points, what would that be? And that was a question from someone that I'll find the name of in a second, but have a little think about that.
Okay. I would say authenticity. I would say example and honest.
Authenticity, example, and honest. Okay, that's wonderful and memorable. We love the power of 3 in our sales messaging at Randstad. Thank you, Maro. The hour's up. We really appreciate your time. You've been a fantastic guest for us. We look forward to you having a really successful 2021 on the pitch and off the pitch. And here's hoping that South Africa are blitzed 3-0 in the series. Look forward to that one, and hopefully you're in the team. And have a great season with the Saracens too, because we need you up in the Premiership. That'd be great. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. Last question: have you been to the pub yet?
I haven't. No, I'm not really a pub.
Right. Okay.
I won't be rushing to the pub. But thank you all for tuning in. And thank you for your time.
Bless you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye, everyone.
Human Forward. Randstad.